But I think it's important that we send a very clear message to all of us that just like in Kenya, where we have said that a COVID patient should be laid to rest within 24 hours of passing away, we should be prepared as Kenyans caught up in these situations around the world to also allow us to lay to rest our loved ones abroad within a very short period of time in those countries. Because bringing those bodies home is going to be extremely difficult under these current circumstances. It is something that we have to think about and that we have to really seriously contemplate, because the situation for those who are very ill is quite dire, and for those who have passed on, it is something that needs serious consideration by the various families. Maybe the time has come for us to allow our loved ones to be allowed to rest where they have fallen. There are other, of course, examples of countries. In Australia, further afield, we have quite a few Kenyans who are stranded over there. Many of them had traveled as tourists. I think we're about 18. In countries like Iran, a very worrisome case. We have over 200 students out there who have not been able to attend school because of the circumstances, and they are struggling because they cannot leave. We continue to try to work through our embassy to reach out to them, to make them know that we care and that we continue to keep them in our thoughts, and we continue to try to find solutions for the circumstances that they face in their various countries. I would also like to spend a few minutes, if I may, talking about our staff. I don't have to tell you how difficult it has been for many of our embassies and our staff abroad to deal with the challenge that they are faced. Many of them are inundated with demands for help, but I think anyone who is clear-headed and thoughtful about the situation that we are facing in the world, this is not a Kenyan situation, but a situation that we are facing in the world, will recognize that it is simply impossible for us to be able to be as responsive as we would normally like to be. You know that Kenya is an exemplar on our continent. Many times we do send aircraft or help to our diaspora who are caught up in situations abroad. Remember the situation in Libya, for example. But you see, that was an incident where there was total chaos and a war was raging and planes could fly in and fly out. And so it was possible to consider that we had a small number of Kenyans who we could extract quickly and save their lives. But when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of people, then the proposition is completely different. We have to wait until this situation blows over. We have to wait until the lockdowns in the various countries end. This is something that we have to do. And our staff are under a lot of pressure. Some of them facing life-threatening circumstances in the countries that they're in. And so it is important that somehow we continue to provide support for them and give them the kind of assistance and help that they need. Other than the situation regarding our staff, I would like to appeal to the diaspora around the world to continue to remain understanding of the situation and to continue to work closely with the ambassadors abroad, including with our staff, so as to try to give them to allow our staff to give them the best possible support they can under the circumstances that they're in. Let me also end with a sad note regarding our staff. Let me just look up that document. 2 days ago, sadly, we lost one of our colleagues in Los Angeles. And we issued a statement, which I think all of you got. Ms. Ruth Anyango Ogonda passed away in Los Angeles on Friday, the 10th of April. She was taken suddenly ill. She had some underlying conditions, high blood pressure, difficulty in breathing, and she was rushed to hospital, but sadly she passed on. We are waiting for the autopsy to be able to determine the cause of death. She has left a daughter of 25 years old and another who is 6 years old. Our embassy, our consul in LA, working under the guidance of Ambassador Jerry Carago, has been reaching out to them to ensure that they get the right consular counseling services, to ensure they get the support, to ensure that they get the comfort that they need to be able to deal with this devastating loss of their mother. It's very sad because they had also lost their father not too long ago. So they have now been orphaned. What is tragic, of course, is that we are not able to bring them home under the circumstances that prevail right now. But we shall continue to ensure that they are kept in the best possible condition at home in Los Angeles. I'm happy to take any questions now. That was
Kenyans who are affected in this situation, and maybe the number of Kenyans who are implemented. Then the other question has been, where is the ambassador or ambassador in China? Because definitely Kenyans who are there, maybe they want to see her, maybe they want to have to issue a statement or something of the sort. It's a concern that maybe it's out there.
okay. First of all, I think the numbers that I have about those who are affected, out of the thousands that we have there in Guangzhou, are 100. Okay. Now, that's a guesstimate, because as you heard from your colleague here, there's a lot of people who are there as unregistered aliens. Okay? And what happens when you have a crisis is that if you're living in a country unregistered and illegally, when there's a crisis, you get smoked out. Because, for example, if you're living too many in a flat, then the rules are now applied forcefully because you're trying to save people's lives, you're trying to stop the spread of the virus. Then you find yourself out in the street. So indeed, you're right that this is a challenge for us. But for the vast majority of Kenyans in China, and when I say vast majority, I'm talking about 95, 97%, we have no issue. No issue. So we have a minority that is affected, but we have to worry about that minority because they are Kenyans. So we have to reach out to them. And remember, they are constituents of certain members of parliament, or, and they care for their constituents, even though those constituents are in China. So we have to worry about them too. About Ambassador Serem, I mean, seriously, if we have an ambassador who has shown herself to be dedicated and outstanding, anybody who has followed her on social media, I'm sorry, you cannot fault that lady for the work she has done for Kenyans. If people don't register, if people only turn up once they have been evicted, then they rock up at the embassy when the embassy is on lockdown. And then we have to figure out how to reach them on lockdown. You tell me how that situation is going to play out. I think she has shown herself to be very resilient. She worked right through the crisis. Remember, when the crisis started, she was here. She didn't have to go. She could have said, Sasa, Naumwa, or whatever, because something. But she picked herself up and flew right into the crisis and took leadership of our office and has demonstrated amazing resilience in the face of a very, very difficult situation. So that's why I was pleading with our diaspora to please be understanding. Yes, it is painful to be thrown out in the street with your suitcase. I agree. It is painful not to know where your next meal will come from. I agree. But it is not fair to blame that on the ambassador or anybody else in the mission, the embassy. In fact, you should be asking them for help, not to apportion blame to them. Yes, please.
My name is Brian Oguya. I work for KBC News. But Ambassador, you realize that our main concern here, we're very concerned, even ourselves, about the situation in China. And I would say I've listened to a number of things you mentioned, which are actually in order. But we fail to hear one thing. We fail to hear what we are going to do as a government. These people could get registered, they could have flouted some rules, but they are our people. Mm-hmm. The Daily Nation reported that.
Let me make a small correction here, because we don't want to declare anybody having passed on when they haven't. I'm reminded that the Kenyan in Sweden is in the ICU and is making good progress, as well as the one in Germany, who is actually from Italy, and was evacuated to Germany, a Kenyan, and is making good progress. So we are thankful to those governments for everything they continue to do for Kenyans. One thing I forgot to mention to you that I think I should. We have been working very closely here in Kenya with our diplomatic corps. With the United Nations, I think you've heard recently that there was a fund that has been put in place to try to raise a certain amount of money under the leadership of the resident coordinator. We are seeing that there's a concerted effort to bring together the United Nations agencies. We are seeing a good response from UNICEF, from UNDP, from IOM, from UNHCR, particularly because we are very concerned about the refugees in our country. And this is, as you know, a Ministry of Foreign Affairs docket, including, of course, Ministry of Interior. And so we are working very closely with these organizations to make sure that we support each other and that they provide us with whatever support they can so that we can move this process forward. So I wanted to make sure that I do not forget to mention the United Nations organizations. But let me also mention the individual embassies that are here. We have, as you have seen, we have received a lot of support from China. The Chinese government has sent us many test kits. The Jack Ma Foundation has been very engaged with us. Ambassador Serem has been engaging in her own private sector fundraising in China. And some of the goods that arrived last week on Friday came from her and her office's attempts to raise supplies, including ventilators, which were shipped to Kenya last week. Like I said, she has been an exemplary ambassador, and I think we should give her all the support that she needs. But we're also looking for support from other countries, including the United States, in spite of their situation, including countries in Europe, because they have, in some cases, extra supplies, extra resources that they can share to help us overcome the situation that we are facing here in Kenya. So I thought it was important for me to mention that. We are also working with the diplomatic missions here on evacuations of their nationals. As you know, many tourists were here on holiday, and some of them want to go home. So we've been organizing a series of evacuations for them to go home, and this has been working very well, and we are very pleased with the progress with regard to evacuation. Kenya is the destination country for medical evacuations for the United Nations in Africa and even in some Asian countries. We are the destination country. So we have been receiving evacuated people brought in by the United Nations, but also by other countries who have been asking us for help to try to treat their people because they are not able to get support from their usual sources. So we remain an evacuation destination, and we're very proud of this. And we are very proud of the fact that our medical fraternity in Kenya is considered of the quality that you can evacuate people here from other countries so that they can receive treatment in Kenya. And this is something that we continue to be very proud of and we continue to support. So there are many, many things that we continue to work on and that we shall continue to work on moving forward. So I just wanted to give you those quick highlights so that I don't forget that there are other things that we are doing that are very positive and that help us all make our country proud, even under these very difficult circumstances. Asanteni sana. Huh? I can't hear you. No, I don't think there's any deaths. Sorry. It's just the one in ICU. Yeah, correct that, please. All right, thank you very much.